Episode 77, full audio redo of Having Some Data Pancakes with Tom Ferrera of Pancake Analytics. Okay, so I'm recording this very brief intro on June 28th, 2024. I have, I guess, in a way, come back from a very long hiatus, or to me, it seemed like a very long hiatus to Instagram. And also, I realized I got to do this right. Um, I was really afraid that I had lost the audio of my conversation with Tom Ferrera. And fortunately, I found it and I was able to download it. I verified this is the correct audio that you're about to listen to. Um, Two apologies that I want to make. First is to the listeners, all of you. I'm sorry, but a, a good amount of you reached out to say that the audio sounded wrong and you could only hear my side. Um, which, yeah, I won't get into everything right now. Just another day for a story for another day. But um, yeah, I had screwed up, and I am just really glad that I was able to find the full audio. The second apology is to my guest, Tom Ferrera. We had a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I just audited just to make sure that it was the full audio and not just me speaking to myself. And because I was using StreamYard, again, I'm not going to get into it right now, but I really appreciate his time and his patience and understanding. Just I continue to be amazed and impressed by the caliber of people that I continue to meet in the hobby. There are definitely some bad apples, and I'm not going to get into that right now either. But for the most part, it's just been such a fantastic experience so far, and I miss this. I pressed record. I actually had to re-record this intro a couple of times just because I had to get my sea legs underneath me. So that's it. I have so much to say down the road, I guess, but right now I want to really get you into this episode, the conversation with Tom. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I missed this. I'm gonna come back to this. I really am. In a different way, maybe, or a better way. I don't know. I am. You can't see this because I'm not making it a video, but I feel my face is getting red. I feel like I'm blushing. Thank you so much for your patience, the listener. Some of you really, it means a lot to me for those of you who reached out. Again, another story for another time. But without further ado, the conversation with Tom Ferrera. All right, so welcome to the Card Diary. I am your host, Denny Cards, and continuing this series of reporters and watchdogs in the hobby, we have a very special guest today, Tom of Pancake Analytics fame on Instagram and other social media platforms. Is that right?
Correct. Thanks for having me on, Danny. It's a pleasure.
We're gonna get to you in a little bit. I just wanted to ask that. Do you have where's your main social media presence?
Yep. Instagram.
All right, awesome. Yeah. You drop knowledge on everyone in social media. It's kind of like you're like Steph Curry dropping buckets. Actually, I shouldn't use that analogy. Who is your favorite basketball player?
Currently, right now, it's Jalen Brunson. Growing up as a kid, Patrick Ewing. Went to then Allen Houston, then to Spreewell, but now it's Brunson.
I continue to have a string, unintended, because we didn't talk about this. More New York guests on the podcast, just so happens. It might be not just the mecca with the Madison Square Garden, but the mecca of the hobby. I don't know. Burbank might get really upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, New York's got a great culture for basketball. Cards was amazing. Comics, it's amazing. It is like the place you want to be. I know California is definitely louder in the social media space, I think.
Ooh,
And
here we
it's
go.
got
East
a
Coast,
good
West
thing. It's a good
Coast.
thing.
Okay, let's go. Tupac, Biggie, let's do it. Um, so when you wrote "Hit 'Em Up," no, I'm just kidding. That was the West Coast, I guess. I guess with Tupac. Jalen Brunson. Okay, so Patrick Ewing misses that finger roll layup, back rim. I remember that. Then Allen Houston hits his double. It not like a Kawhi Leonard bounce. That was crazy. But he hits a little floater jumper that does go in, right, to beat the Heat.
Yep.
I mean, oh man, and then of course I probably shouldn't mention the Charles Smith thing against the Bulls. That was just, he didn't even get that shot up.
Yeah, I mean the Ewing miss. I remember as a kid, like I couldn't stay up for the whole game. And then like I woke up the next morning and I was asking like my older brother and my dad, like, did we win? Did we win? And it just like triggered, set them off.
Yeah. That means you had good parents. I think I might have stayed up, but probably not, like, probably because my parents, not because they were well, they were strict, but they were like Tiger parents. But I probably like did something nefarious to try to watch a game. But yeah, I was more of a Jordan fan at that time. But I mean, I remember that definitely. So you have an older brother, so you guys are all into sports.
The older brother
In part
is
in the hobby.
yeah, he's in the hobby. He's also a collegiate basketball coach.
Oh, did not
So
know this.
I mean, pretty easy to look it up. Same
All
last
right.
name.
Same last name. All right. I won't ask here, but you are okay with your last name being said on the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tom, that, and I was going to say Lewis Hamilton, right? Or is that Port? No, it is Ferrari. Is it? Oh my gosh. I know he's moving. I know he's leaving Mercedes, but okay, this is not a Formula One podcast. Although maybe, I mean, we just transition into that. Okay. So your name. Okay. So I got to say this. We DM'd a little bit. You said you would give me kudos because I said, what should I call you? And you're like, man, I've been called everything. So the list you gave me was Tom, Pancakes, Pancake, Mr. Cakes, Professor Pancake. Those are all good. I'm going to just, maybe if I remember, I'll try to weave them in. I also like pan because that is the word for bread in Spanish, or pan, or pan.
Pan, yeah.
Pan, Mr. Pan, Senor Pan.
Well, my wife is Venezuelan. So.
Oh, there you go. I love it. I really appreciate that you don't take yourself too seriously, but you do take data seriously. I mean, would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the job sometimes to a fault, right? Like I can get into a little bit tunnel vision. I don't like to say I get analysis paralysis, but there's just some things that are so glaringly obvious to me where it's like you can't take this serious. Like they missed this, like it's right in front of you. And then I have to go back and realize, okay, not everyone's been in the profession as long as I've been. Most aren't at all. It's making content and having fun.
Let's get into that. So you have been, I want to get into how we know each other, but you have been on this podcast, at least by reference. Perhaps, this is the first time in the guest seat, which I really appreciate your time with, but you have asked, when I solicit the Instagram audience for questions for prior guests, you've been always good at asking insightful questions. And I did solicit the Instagram audience for questions for you. And I haven't, let me just say, I haven't received any, which makes me think either, the algorithm, everyone's talking about, the algorithm, I can't, no one's watching my boring content. No, I'm just kidding. Half kidding. But either they didn't see it, or it was too soon, too recent, or people are just super intimidated by you. And they're like, how do I ask this guy a question? It's just too, I guess my question is, how intimidating do you think you are?
Oh, I think it depends on who is viewing. I was on a live with Jeremy Lee, and there were some good questions being asked. A lot of them were, parameter type checks to see if this guy knows his stuff. I don't know if that increased the intimidation factor
Mhm.
or lowered it for some people. I mean, we went into, oh man, Bayham's theorem,
Mm,
all other analytics approaches, when to use it right. And already you can feel like, man, you're putting people to sleep right now.
gotcha.
Um, Sometimes I won't say like I'm intimidating in the fact of like surliness. I try to be like, okay, be as open as
Yeah,
welcome as possible.
yeah,
Um, I don't think it should be too intimidating. I'm not gonna like tell you like, oh, that's a stupid question. Don't ask me that. Like I love conversations, discussions. I
yes.
think that what surprises people the most once they get over the intimidation factor. It's like, oh wait, this guy will actually respond to a DM and sees the sides, both points of view. But
Yes, I
it's
love it.
I still think there's a barrier to people like actually coming in, whether
Yes.
it's the name or some of the topics I go into.
Wait, pancakes are serious now all of a sudden?
Hey,
Um,
there's a lot of waffle fans out there.
Before we get into seriousness, the transition is going to be talking about that very important subject matter. Because I have and I'm not going to call them hot takes, although hot pancakes, hot waffles. We're going to get into that. But before I get into waffles and pancakes, the ever ongoing debate and struggle, which, by the way, I'm like, just have both. I don't know. Why not? Not doesn't have to be binary. Just I mean, more calories. But the
Yeah,
first way, the first way I got to know you, uh, you commented something really nice. It was informative. It was like I was talking about comps. I don't remember exactly the post and when I posted, but I remember I was like, "Oh, this Pancake Analytics." He like commented. It was a great way to find comps, which was eBay's Terapeak. And I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't even know about this." And I realized I, like many things in the hobby, just kind of like scratched the surface because it's so hard to deep dive into things because there's only so much time, knowledge, resources. Sometimes you just need someone to kind of like point you in the right direction. So I found that there's like a pay. I mean, can you explain eBay's Therapy to me and others, please?
yeah. So eBay's Terapeak replaced the marketing API that you would need a developer license to access. You can
Mhm.
still access that API. APIs are calls to a database. But now, if you are a seller on eBay, you have the store subscription, you can
Mm.
access eBay's data. Now it's up to 3 years. It used to be 90 days, then they expanded it to a year, 2 years. Now it's at 3 years. And you can just, in a GUI system, so it's like a drop down, but you type whatever card you're looking for, and it'll shoot you out results, give you average sold, oh, units sold. And my favorite stat that not many people utilize is the distinct sellers.
Distinct
So you can
sellers.
actually see
Mm.
kind of what the supply is each month.
And is
I would
that
love if
because
they gave us distinct buyers too.
mhm.
Not
So
quite there yet.
when you say distinct sellers, is that because people have to relist because of non-payers and they basically sell the same card, same listing title, and it just seems like this card is transacted 5 times over the past year, but it really is just the same card that just doesn't get paid for. Trey Young. Would you say that's accurate?
Yep, that's accurate. And
Yeah.
Terapeak will help you out cleaning out that stuff every once in a while. It'll
Um,
come through. Terapeak tries to make sure that okay, sale was completed. Unfortunately, there's some I like to call them glitches in
Glitches.
eBay that sellers can take advantage of, like the quantity sold glitch, and it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Such a nice way to talk about it's like the Matrix, the glitches. Neo. Um, API, I had to look it up because I know kind of what it means, but application programming interface. GUI I knew is graphic user interface. That's like just Windows, whatever we're at now. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Windows 95. Um, yeah, this podcast is from 1995 here. But yeah, no, that's a really good explanation of therapy. Thank you so much. So I I am getting better with eBay sales myself as a seller. I'm still so new. I'm still selling these dollar cards and value bin cards, but store stuff, store subscription. is like, I mean, it can be, as I forget exactly what it was, like as cheap as $5 to like $500 a month and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really great that you can get 3 years of data. So that's fantastic. I mean, information is power, right?
Yeah, right at your fingertips. I use it for sealed wax a lot too. It's kind of
Mm.
like a gap you'll see that's not easy to get to. Sealed wax. You know, not every card I collect is tracked. You know, I
Yeah.
like to collect low end pieces.
Okay.
We're all
Um,
balling on a budget.
balling on a budget. So, are you also a seller on eBay?
Yes, yeah. So I
Okay.
will move pieces that like doesn't serve a purpose for me anymore, or it's like kids get out of things. It's like flavor of the week.
Gotcha.
You
Gotcha.
know,
Oh, no, absolutely. I get that. Okay, so enough about eBay because they are not a sponsor. Our second interaction, which I'm just gonna bring it up because you and I have DM'd about it, but we didn't really
yeah.
talk about it, which let's just do it here. It's like almost like therapy for me. Our second interaction wasn't too good. There is this gentleman who I refuse to have on this podcast. Uh, his name is Slapstrong Tim. He went live on Instagram during the National, which was such a big mistake on his part, but it was at the Beckett party. I'm not gonna say that I I had too much. I'm gonna say that I was overserved. So I'm gonna deflect the blame and responsibility. Not only was I overserved, I think a lot of people were overserved. It was an open bar, but I'm just kidding. Everyone relax. I'm not saying that it was Beckett's fault, and I'm not trying to say that they're trying to cancel me because I've called out grading companies. But I I made some dumb comments and I did make some jokes. I At that point I had no clue who was on the live. I can't read Tim's Nokia flip phone. Um, but you didn't find them tasteful. Others didn't find them tasteful, and I did because I am actually not a complete jerk like some people may think I am. I did reach out to you, and I did genuinely apologize for that. So I think we're good. I don't know. We've never talked about this over in person, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, we are good. We're in a much better place. I think it's a great use case on just internet reactions as a whole. Regardless of remove myself, remove yourself, remove influences that were coming in, is you lose context.
Yeah.
Whether what the setting is you know in this specific case, I always join Tim's lives.
Why?
Tim's always like been like,
They're
well, like I don't know why you join him, but
They're
that's
terrible.
cool.
They're terrible. He's like he's staring at deer. He's like, look at this deer, and I'm like, all right, people want to rag on me for about cards, and he's looking at deer in his backyard. Ridiculous.
But like he's opened me up to like different collectors just in
Yeah.
his raw format. Like that's how I got first on to Daryl, so Doctor Collectible.
Mm-hmm.
He's been at my local show a couple of times. I think he's coming back
Oh,
in April. But it was
nice.
first through a live with Tim.
Okay.
It's like, oh, let me check out this guy.
Before you
But
before you proceed, your local
yeah.
show, is that the Bleecker? Is that the New York one?
Oh, I am in the Tampa Bay area.
Oh my
So I
gosh,
was
what am I
born in
thinking?
born in Brooklyn,
Okay,
migrated here.
got it. So this is the
Bay Area. Yep.
Bay Area card
Yep.
show.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, proceed. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no
Bay
worries.
Area.
Yeah. So, I was just interacting with Tim on his live. Tim's asking, like, oh, Pancake, what are you up to? And I was finalizing decks for CGC
That's right.
presentations. And so I was already like multitasking and then trying to distract myself, take away
Mhm.
from the deck a little bit. And you overheard Tim responding back to me. So I'm just putting myself in your shoes. Like, Tim didn't even say at that point who it was, whose name it was.
Right.
You just hear like analytics and you're trying to have fun at a party. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, so that sort of led to like TED Talk conversations. And
That's right.
you might have not even realized in the moment that Tim was live.
I don't know what he does. in
Yeah.
general. He's such a wild card. You know, if Tim is listening, because I don't even know what he does, but I do really appreciate Tim. I do want to have him on. I do appreciate the doors he's kind of opened up for me and given me kind of like a glimpse into, people in the hobby, in a really, like real way, like, just kind of like transparent and honest. And those are folks I want to align myself with, because there is a lot of just whatever you want to call it, BS, noise, and all that. But he's genuinely a good dude. So Tim, if you're listening, you'll never be on this podcast.
I think like it's also important to take away that, most disagreements aren't about the person. Like it's usually about like, oh, here's a statement somebody said I don't necessarily agree with. They don't align with me.
It's true.
And you can move on from it. And then, oh, here, we agree on this. We bond this way. Like
Yes.
it's okay not to agree 100% of the time.
That is so true.
It's like it's also marriage advice.
Oh boy, here we go. Oh boy, this is now a marriage advice podcast. I want to get into the debate about waffles and pancakes, talking about not agreeing with each other. But who else have you kind of been introduced to, either through Tim? Like, this was a question I had down later for down the road in this recording, but it was going to be like, who are your influence? Who inspires you / influences you? Like, whose content do you consume, other than mine, of course? But who do you kind of watch?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to preface it a little bit first with just, I'm able to separate the person from the content.
Good.
And what actually makes it to air.
Good.
So AIH, we've bonded. We talk a lot about finance to each other, different methods, different approaches. Early on in his content, I was telling him like, hey, you should put more of the way you talk about indexes and inflation rates into your videos. He tried it out a couple episodes, mentioned that it was coming recommendation from me. People hated it. Because it's like they weren't tuning in for, expertise. So he has a separate channel for it. But whenever I'm building models and it's like, okay, what economic features should I consider? Like I reach out to him, we talk about it, just through DMs. He'll share some graphs, websites he go to, and I can incorporate those. That's the side like you'll never see come out in the video.
Yeah.
But it's also, you got to reach out a little bit more. Cage. So Cage Lawyer.
Yeah.
I've been listening to him since the Goldberg days. Had a couple of Zooms with Goldberg. Really good conversations. He was interested in the analytics side of it. Cage and I don't always see eye to eye. The same thing, like, don't put it on Cage. You don't quite agree with that statement that they're making. I even left them a pretty nasty, was it an Apple review that, Cage and I spoke about.
Oh, okay.
And when I met with Goldberg on Zoom, like we went through the review and, I pointed out things that are like, hey, you guys corrected this. Like this is resolved. I still think, you can tighten up these pieces, and they were open to it. Cage and I have bonded over Disney. We've overlapped at Disney a couple of times, like didn't actually like meet with each other, but it'll be like, I'll be posting photos with my family. Then the next day he posts photos and then we reach out and like, hey, are you here? Oh, I just left. Oh, I'm coming this time.
So
Yeah.
not Lorcana, the actual Disney.
The actual Disney.
Got it. All right.
Yeah. Consume a lot of Cage, Dustin, Sports Card Dad, Neo Cards and Comics.
Neo's
I actually
great.
got the brief meeting with Neo at last year's National. He was in the CGC area where I was going to present. Stephanie, Mama Breaks.
Okay.
And that's always a little bit surprising to people that I buy into breaks as the analytics guy. But I take it as looking at just breadth of what I can buy into. So not
Mhm.
depth, but breadth.
Mm.
So I like to, it's gambling a little bit, but it's like, okay, I know they're going to open a case and I can get the Yankees in one of her teams.
Yeah.
And then I'll get another team in Valor Sports.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have a better chance if I play it that way than going to my LCS and getting one box instead of like spreading it out.
Isn't that the really, like, underlying foundation of breaks is to get what you want for a cheaper price point without having to sift through all the cards or teams or players that you don't
Hmm.
want. But of course, I mean, I think people it is so maligned. I just finished the Meet the Breaker series, and it's because people are angry or upset at the maybe not just the everyday breaker, but kind of like the tippy top, the tip of the iceberg, where there's a lot of margin, right? And I
You know?
recently had on,
Mhm.
and I just published it this morning, but it was kind of like about break comp and how, talking about like the price points of these breaks, and it's like the margins are like double what it should be, and people just buy into it because it's so easy. I mean, you just when you're shopping online, it's too easy to like get caught up in that. So I totally get what you mean. But yeah, I mean, buying into
Yep.
breaks. I mean, but you gotta have fun too. I mean,
Yep.
come on.
So break comp, consume a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Him and I are working on a model together.
Oh,
So
was not planned. I didn't know
yeah,
this. Breaking
it's
news. I'm excited.
it's kind of dips into NPS a little bit. It's like net
And
promotion score.
net promotion score. Okay, not National Park Services. Okay, net
No.
promotion score.
But I mean, he's got a very unique data set.
Hmm.
Um, we're working on ideas together how to enhance his site a little bit more. I would love to see him add some like a GUI drop down to where you can pick, you know, the breaker, maybe make it more of like a Ghostbuster type line graph.
Hmm.
But then you filter it and like, okay, I'm just seeing the green stream now. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting output. A lot of ETL work going on behind the scenes.
ETO. I don't even have a joke for that one.
ETL,
ETL.
ex- extract, transform, and
Extract,
load. Coding.
transform,
Fancy word for
friend
coding.
load, coding. I know GTL from Jersey Shore was Gym Tan Laundry. I remember that. I
Uh,
remember the shirt before the shirt. I remember, man, that was a wild time. Simpler
yeah.
times.
See,
Be
Ryan at Gemrate, he's helped out with a couple
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh my
analysis.
gosh, look, this is like the whole
I can
ecosystem. I
list the
mean,
whole hobby.
these are great.
Reckless
I mean, these are
cards.
all great folks, all great folks. So, data, okay, because we've been having too much fun, I'm gonna have to like say, let's get to waffles and pancakes at the end
Got it.
because I want to get into the reason you're here, the meat. And I want to have some fun with this too. It doesn't have to be all like what is it? Chicken breast is white meat and it's drier, but then the dark meat, my favorite is boneless, skinless chicken thighs and just marinating them. Just my mouth is watering just thinking about this. I am the hungriest man in the hobby, of course. Um, but data governance, you and I have DM'd about or you have shared with me how you do consider yourself a reporter and watchdog in the hobby because there are 4 quadrants of analytics, which I want you to talk about because I think it's fascinating and I love it. And then let's just deep dive into that if we can.
Yeah. So, 4 quadrants of analytics, and you can also apply it to content that you see out there. So, and they're each going to be additive. So, we start out with descriptive statistics, and that's going to be content such as like, hey, X card sold for all time high at X percentage. Then we go to diagnostics, which is looking at, okay, what was the correlation or causation behind it? Then we get to predictive, and that is like, forecasting where it should be over the next week or so. And then we finally get to prescriptive, which is where people don't like to get in that much. You'll hear the whole like, this isn't financial advice. Don't take my advice. Collect what you like. But, X person is hot. Buy them now. This is what I would do. What I see a lot is people don't treat it additive and they'll go from descriptive straight to prescriptive. So what you're doing is you're cutting out steps you should do. Like if you do all 4 steps, people will take your analysis more seriously, in my opinion.
Okay.
You'll save yourself some unnecessary hits. You'll be more prepared to answer questions. You won't come off as the term that no one likes to hear, like pump and dump.
I mean, I've had one
like
guest
don't jump to conclusions.
Yes. Do you remember Arrested Development leaked to conclusions? They were trying to make that board game happen. Oh my god, it's so good. I need more Arrested Development memes in my. Right now, the main memes I go to are like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm talking way too much coffee. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Love it. And well, I can't remember the second one now, but Arrested Development, such a good show. So these are additive, like you said. So they are, are they kind of like steps? Because I know quadrants, you got the chart in front of you, and you got the 4 quadrants. I don't even know what to call them otherwise, but you have. Are you saying if you jump diagnostic and you jump predictive and go straight from descriptive to prescriptive, it doesn't tell the whole story?
Exactly. Not telling the whole story. The reason why it also fits into a quadrant is you're going to think of like level of effort to deliver versus value it provides. So, but yeah, don't skip the steps.
See, that's the thing though. As someone who is as scatterbrained and like loves short form content more than long form, I'm talking about myself. It's like I have seen myself not want to take the steps to the effort to put in better content. Now I'm actually trying to make more skits and long form content, so it feels more like not work because it's all supposed to be fun and it's a hobby, but like it is harder. And I find myself during times when I'm either stretched for time or I just don't want to do something because no one in the hobby can force me to do anything in the hobby, which is why I love the hobby, because it is the hobby, and I'll just keep saying that word over and over. It's almost like water, that the easiest source is just, it's going to go down. It's going to be low effort. So you almost have to make a conscious effort to make more effort into things, right? I mean, do you find yourself like that too? Maybe like it's like you got to put the work in, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I like to treat myself as a storyteller. The analysts, data scientists that always like stand out from the others are those that can articulate it well, really drive home the takeaway. Now, everyone's got different writing styles. A lot of time, like my feedback and criticism I'll receive is, you bury the lead too much. And sometimes I like to think it as like, okay, my takeaway was so powerful. Like don't take it as like you buried the lead. Look at more as like, okay, I got to solve for the intro, the body. Like, how do I make that just as impactful? And it's not always trimming the fat. So that's why my website's gone through evolutions over time. And now it's more of like a self-service. So that way I'm just telling the story while the user like updates graphs, choose what they want. It has my guidance. I don't change like the big takeaway at the end, but it's kind of like choose your own adventure to some point. When previously I would have like, here's like 30 graphs. Then, here's the 3 things I need to know.
It really does sound a lot like GemRate and BreakComp, their websites. Kind of like, here's the information, do with it what you will, take it and run with it. It's just that a lot of people just don't want to run with it. They just want the the TLDR. We just live in such a TLDR, right? Too long didn't read world. But wait a minute. Are you saying you get haters too? You, Tom, Pancake Analytics?
all the time.
All the time. Oh my gosh.
My favorite hater comment was I was on a live stream, right? So I was being interviewed. I think it was with Rolling with FD.
Okay.
And someone in the comments told me I was 1 degree away from garbage.
Wow.
And they were talking about, just the analytics companies that I work with and leverage their data.
Well, I'm sorry that I signed into my burner account and said that. I'm so sorry. I meant 2 degrees, not 1. But no, that person that person will never be the man or woman. I mean, let's be real, it's always men. That person will never be a man in the arena. They will not make their own content. And by the way, when I said that, I mean most always when there's a troll, it's like just some dude. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there can be women trolls and all that. I don't want to be like that, but it's just these dudes who are just like criticizing everyone's content, and they don't have the whatever you want to call it, the wherewithal, the brains, the creativity to actually produce content. And so
the best in-person hater comment I got was in the Q&A portion of the CGC panel I was doing at the National.
Okay.
It was the sports card panel, so not the TCG.
Okay.
Just to get you an idea of what crowd was there. And, they put it in a way at first. I mean, it was like a haymaker type comment they did. So they let in with like being inviting. Their question was like, out of curiosity, like, hey, which software are you using to produce like this output? So, I start talking about the different software I use, RStudio, Python. And after I was done with my answer, they then chimed in again and he said, thank you. Now I know what not to use. And he kind of like crossed his arms.
Wow.
It was hilarious. CGC came up to me afterwards and they're just like, oh, sorry about that. I hope you're okay. Like you did well. And and it was like, I mean, I get a lot of comments, but that one was like, that was fun.
Again, I apologize for saying that. While wearing a beard and a hat, a cowboy hat. I was wearing cowboy hat, sunglasses, and a beard when I said that, and I apologize. Man, that's gosh, these people. Some of them may be listening. I wonder if that person is like on Instagram. But anyway, let's not drop names here. That's for my other podcast. It's really funny. You talk about storytelling and like data and like it's almost like vegetables. Like people don't want to eat their vegetables; they just want to eat the fast food, right? And they just want to consume. And I'm gonna botch this analogy or this story up, but JJ Redick, I think he's a wonderful. I don't know what. Well, let me ask you, what do you think about JJ Redick?
I think he's one of your best analysts.
Oh my gosh, he's so good. He said in a tweet or an X or whatever you want to call it, or on Instagram. I'm sure I saw it on Instagram because I don't travail X or anything like that. He was like, I will put up a step-by-step breakdown analysis of Zion's last 10 post moves, and it'll get no views. And then I make some sort of comment about Stephen A. Smith, and it gets 10 million views. And he's like, why would I make that 10 post analysis thing on Zion when you guys don't want it? You guys don't watch it. You guys tell me you want it. You guys tell me it's healthy vegetables, but in reality, you don't want to eat the vegetables. I mean, the vegetables part is me. He didn't say that part, but
yeah, it's a good analogy though.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it is, you either got to fight for a culture change, right? Just the culture change on how we accept data. A lot of people are afraid. They're scared, right? I always try to kick off all my Comic-Con panels with, asking the crowd who's here for analytics, who's here for the topic I'm discussing. And then if the votes of hands, like, is more towards the topic, I make sure I follow that up with, like, just to let you know, like, what I'm going to show you, you don't need a stats class.
Mm.
I'm going to explain it in a way. We're going to go on this journey together. We're not going to be scared.
Oh,
And it always goes over well.
so
But
nice.
to your point, like in social media, how we digest it, JJ Reddit's point is we don't have like 45 minutes
Hmm.
to digest what Pancakes would consider
Yeah.
quality work. Like no one has that.
Yeah, and by the way, Zion doesn't even have 10 post moves. He has, well, like, 2, maybe 2. We're not talking like, this isn't Danny Ainge or not Danny Ainge, he's a guard. Oh god, who's the big dude on the Celtics? McHale. McHale was like the king of post moves. Oh my goodness. All right. When you present,
Yeah.
so yes, you have sports cards and you have the Comic Cons, and your Comic Con is like probably the second biggest to the Anaheim one, right? I mean, I've been to the New York Comic Con. This is like years ago, before kids and before everything. I I remember. Well, is it? It's still in the Javits Center, right?
Yeah. So never been to the New York Comic Con.
Oh, okay.
My local one is MegaCon, and that is
MegaCon. Okay.
170,000 people.
Oh,
It's run by Fan Expo. They also run the Toronto Comic Con. So pretty much, if you want to catch me live, just go to
yeah.
the Fan Expo site, and I'm
Okay.
usually going to be at one of those events.
Wow,
But
170,000.
yeah, it's a
How
lot of
big is
people.
how
So
big is the
it,
Anaheim one? Because they keep saying that's the biggest one. I thought that one was like 170,000.
so usually when they give those statistics,
Yeah.
they're just talking about their sister companies. So
Oh.
Fan Expo is its own thing. It'll never talk about fan experience, and then it will never talk about the WonderCon brand, which
Hmm.
San Diego Comic Con falls into that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said
You
Anaheim.
know,
Yeah, San Diego Comic
yeah,
Con. Right.
yeah, they play around with their own stats.
I see. I see. And I imagine there's also like the whole per visitors per day versus like the aggregate. Because I know
Oh
like
yeah,
right now, to use another analogy, and I love this one because it has to do with like fair food, and I love Americana.
yeah.
I just need fair food. I just need everything just dipped in batter and deep fried. Dallas, the Dallas fair and the Minnesota fair, I think consistently state fairs say that they're the largest. And then I forget which one is which, but one has like the most in aggregate over the number of the entire days of the fair because it's like almost like a week long. And then the other one, it's like, well, on average per day, we have the most. And then, they're all fighting over who's bigger and bigger. But at the end of the day, it's like it's a fair, it's fun. I mean, who cares who's the biggest? It's like a great time. And so I definitely want to go to one of those two. It's just, the ones in my area are just so like, I guess, rinky dink compared to those. Um, but no, see, now I want to talk about waffles and pancakes, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get
Or
there
deep fried
before
Oreos.
deep fried Oreos are just so good. Oh my gosh.
Funnel cakes.
Um, yes. Let's just talk about that. Let's just name all the foods and get people who are driving to or from work just salivating. They're either ready to, make some dinner, and they're like, "These guys are talking about deep fried Oreos."
Can we
Um,
get them to call out of work?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're not late if you bring breakfast, everyone.
That's true. Hey, everyone, I brought donuts. You come the office hero. Um, so okay, so here's the thing, and I am very much getting hungry. Um, you had mentioned to me in our conversations, and I'm not going to betray any confidences here, but like when it comes to data analytics and reporting, like you know you did consider part of that is watchdog stuff, and it's been hard for me to get a watchdog onto this podcast because apparently I'm part of the positivity crew. But data governance, I remember one other comment or phrase you said was outlier anomaly detection.
Yep.
So can we talk about and two other ones: validating against multiple sources and query review? So could you kind of talk me through some of those terms and like how you do in a way consider this like watchdog work?
Yeah. So let's start with anomaly detection.
Yes.
It sounds really impressive, but at the end of the day, is you're setting up in code a threshold that a KPI should never go over. Like you should flag that. And when you think about it for sports cards, non-sports cards, say you have a card that shows in your output it increased 2,000%
Mhm.
over the past week, that should set off every flag in your system.
Okay.
Because that'll tell you that, hey, this is actually either on the rise, this is legitimate, or there's something wrong in your data set. Like you might be comparing two items that aren't actually alike. And so pretty much you would just set that threshold, kick it out to another data set. Don't put it in production until you validated it.
Hmm. Okay, so I did not know what KPI stood for, so I did quickly Google it.
Yep,
Key
sorry, key
performance
performance indicator.
indicator. So my follow-up question to that, which I really like, is before we get to the other ones. So what would be the threshold? I mean, if you use an outlier number like 2000%, of course it's going to be caught, but like how close could you almost in a way like calibrate the system, right? And it may differ for the sport, the industry, the sector, whatever, but like,
Yeah,
if a car does 2x what it did 2 months ago, but we know that that player had an incredible, month, Eastern Conference Player of the Month or whatever it is, right? It's going to go up. Well, some people think it doesn't matter. Performance doesn't matter on the court, but what would you say is a general good range for a threshold for detection?
yep. Now you're speaking my language, Denny. So there's a huge
Nerd
value.
glasses.
There's a huge value add we can do, and it's something that I typically provide. You can do an advanced segmentation
Okay.
by your sports category, different player performances, however you want to cook it. But
Okay.
essentially, what you're doing is you're setting your baseline.
Okay.
So you'll have a differential equation that will look for, say, like, okay,
Mhm.
this player scored X amount of points. They're in this tier. Their
Mhm.
threshold to increase should be this large. Like, don't set
Mm.
off the flags.
Okay.
So think about, a lot of percentages is a scale issue as well,
Yes. Yes.
which you were implying where it's like, okay, say a raw card's like 99 cents
Mhm.
and then it sells for $2.
Mhm.
Without the additional fun modeling work, it's going to get flagged every time it sells for $2.
Mhm. Yeah. So you I took statistics in college. So I have a general understanding. I don't know much about this stuff at all. I don't talk about what type of work I do, but it's not in this field at all. I also know that there's this thing called bell curves and standard deviations, and how in general that if something's more than two standard deviations away from the norm, that is generally, and of course there are exceptions, I guess, but that it's like an outlier, or that that people generally flag things that are more than two standard deviations away from a norm. Does that kind of also go into what you're saying here a little bit?
Yep, that would jive as well. There's also ways you can control for those outliers if you feel it's legitimate, right? Sometimes an outlier sale is true.
Yeah.
There's different like smoothing, damping factors we can play with.
Smoothing.
We're not talking about card care. It's
Smooth.
actual,
Yes.
analytics term.
You got it. You beat me to the joke. Smoothing, absolutely. Smooth out those edges, people. No, not sponsored by no, but when it comes to smoothing and dampening, like we're talking about like variance and noise, right? Kind of
Yep.
like the uh like a random, 10 sales out of 10 sales, nine of them are within 90 to $100, and then you got this one sale that's like $10 or $350, and you're like, what is that? I mean, we can not throw it out, but maybe there's a way to explain it, right? Maybe
Yeah.
again, that's maybe too extreme of an example, but I know as an eBay seller who's trying to get better at it, there are these golden hours or better days or better times to post, or for auctions to end, for auctions to start slash end. And so people talk about that. They're like, man, this sale, if the data, if 130 or Card Ladder or Market Movers, whatever, shows that this auction ended at 12 p.m. on a Tuesday, it just ended at a bad time.
Yeah. So when I was really active selling, I would actually take advantage of those times.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would list them at what would seem like ridiculous times.
Mm-hmm.
I like to align it with like in poker, how it's like bad beats.
Yeah.
Like I'm the worst person to play against in poker because I'll play hands knowing the probability that you're going to play that hand is so low that when I do win with that hand, like I win huge.
Till
And it always frustrates the ottle person because it's like, you should have folded that like
till
so earlier in this when we were just trying to
yes.
hit the pars. But why I call it like bad beats is so what I would do, and it's kind of like just a selling strategy. I'm not saying do it, but it was
Mhm.
fun when I was doing it. Is I would make sure my auctions were ending like good, like international time, horrible domestic USA time,
Mhm.
and I would list them 15 minutes apart from each other, knowing that like, oh, eBay's gonna set like, hey, this is ending 15 minutes. Hey, you could win. You could win. Like
Mhm.
as cards. And what that did for me is like I got into their international global program really quick, like early adopter. So I was
Oh.
getting all those nice discounts on shipping. I
Mm.
was providing card shops that couldn't get PSA orders or they were still hung up and their customers just wanted like TCG cards
Yeah.
there. You know, I would also get a lot of hate messages on eBay for what I was doing.
Oh my gosh.
Like I would
Yes.
get like you're everything that's wrong with the hobby.
You're ruining my comp. I have a value of this card and you are destroying the comp
But
value.
I was
And
treating it strictly ROI.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I
Oh,
was
I
within a
love
margin that was comfortable, like
that's
it
fascinating. I've never heard of this strategy. I mean, I hope people are listening to this really like again, you're not telling people to do this,
yeah,
but it's just a different way to look at it. I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I try to think very globally and like, thank you to my I forget what number we're at now, but like, actually the podcast does not go up on in Korea, but that's why I'm actually trying to get some stuff up onto YouTube because that has no restrictions unless maybe you're in Russia or something like that. Nothing against my Russian listeners if there are any, but just restrictions. But
yeah.
global, different time zones. Like I keep thinking Eastern and to Pacific, those four time zones, but you can get into the international global program like you said, and that's really interesting because yeah, for us we're like, why would this thing end on Tuesday at you know lunchtime, but to someone else that's like a Wednesday evening.
Perfect timing. And
Yeah.
think of it from this point of view too. Like I have my most fun in the hobby buying cards when it's like, ooh, I think I'm onto something nobody knows yet.
Yes.
And it'll be like,
Yes.
oh, this guy Pancake is listing cards at a horrible time. I'm going to
Hmm.
snag up all of these,
Hmm.
you know, but don't know that Pancake's ROI positive. Like I'm doing exactly what he wants me to do. So it's
Hidden
really
gems.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean, isn't that again kind of going into the cards of like digging through a dollar box and finding a huge, $100 card? I mean, those
My
people are making on
favorite pastime.
yeah, going through a binder,
Yeah.
finding something amazing, finding like, how many people talk about, oh, I want to know a band before they make it big, right? Kind of
Yeah.
like the hidden gem. Oh man, I saw Postal Service before they went to the Amway Arena or whatever it is, right? So um I'm not very big on music, so I'm just trying to learn. I just said random things that my wife has maybe talked about. Um but no, that's really yes, it's got to be about fun. I mean, there's so people take the hobby so seriously, and there's definitely like the serious sides, and I think there's so much seriousness because there's so much money, and with money comes the stress, and with the stress comes the seriousness and all that. But like you just mentioned, how you're ROI positive, which means return on investment. You're going to make money on a card. You you're having fun with it. You're experimenting and you're trying different things out.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just are either risk averse or fun averse. I don't know what to call it, but they just feel like they have to win every transaction. And here you are just being like, look, I can win on this and you can win on this, and let's just have some fun. I think that's great. That's a great approach.
Yeah. And the flip side of it is, so a couple years ago, I purchased these EPAC exclusive cards, and it's man-made diamonds, and it's the Infinity Stones, and there was only
Ooh.
25 a piece made.
Wow.
So it took me about a year to get it. By the time like I was comfortable paying the price,
Mm-hmm.
it sold on eBay. I was like, oh my goodness, no.
Oh.
Then it relisted the
Mm-hmm.
next couple of days. I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to the seller. I was like, hey, what happened here? And it was like, oh, it was a non-pay. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, can I just buy it at what the auction ended for, or whatever their best offer was? So we agreed, and I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years later, the seller messages me on ePack. He's like, hey, just to let you know, I sold another set, same price like I sold to you at, I'm just making sure like your value is still there. And it was like an
Oh.
interesting concept. I didn't think about that, but I also explained to him like this is the centerpiece of my collection. Like I have the Legends Infinity Gauntlet on display, and I have the cards surrounding it. It's like a cool setup.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking like I'm gonna buy these man-made diamond cards and think they're gonna X over the next year. Like that wasn't the goal. It was like I'm a nerd.
Yeah. Take that, great curator. It's not all about the pump and dump. Just kidding. Come on, Dan. I'm gonna feud with him later. One, I don't have many comics, but one of the ones that I loved, prize possession type of things, was Infinity Gauntlet issue 1, volume 1, issue 1.
Yeah.
I love I guess that's why people like the Avenger movies. It's not just one person, and there's something so great to be said about the one person, man, woman's journey and the anti-hero and all this stuff. But when everything mashes up together, call me a comic simp if you want, but like the What If series, just like, oh my gosh, like as a kid, I'm just like, oh man, what if that did happen? And I used to love that stuff. And so I still have it. I don't know. I gotta dig that up. I don't know where it is. It could be in Korea with my parents for all I know. But it's just the infinite. Just I just got one request for you, Tom, and or Mr. Pants in your pond, and that's please don't snap your fingers while wearing it or while having it. I really enjoyed this. I know we have a hard stop in like 5 minutes. We got to get to waffles and pancakes. I have these other questions. I was going to talk about how do you monetize your work, how important is the presentation of the data, all this stuff. But we can't end without talking about this. I'm going to set the stage, and we can go back and forth, and we can have a heated debate.
Yeah.
We can just get. All right, here's the thing. All right, and by the way, are you friends with Bagels and Wax, Vadim? Because
I know of the name.
you know of him. Okay.
Yeah. Never like one-on-one interactive,
Okay,
but
I
I
think he's a really good
consume
dude.
so much content, man.
That's
I know
true.
like he owns like a bagel shop, right?
Yeah.
He's friends with Bro Namath, who's local to me.
Oh
So
wow,
it's like
awesome.
it's like degrees of separation.
Just a matter of time before you guys
Yeah.
talk about all carbohydrates. So let's keep it only to waffles and pancakes. I just
Yeah.
had that question because we're talking about starch products here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the thing, okay? One of my favorite stats and highlights is seeing like a big offensive lineman just crush the defender, and that's called a pancake. And they actually keep those stats now. They didn't keep them back in the 80s and 90s, but like play Madden and all that, and it comes up. I did want to say this. Shout out to Drummond Collector Teapot, who was trying to talk about how offensive linemen get no love in the hobby. And again, keep the stats of the grunt workers, and you will see maybe more like comparisons and maybe some more love. I don't know. But here's the thing about pancakes and waffles, okay? I am team waffle. I'm not anti pancake because you can love both. But here's my rationale, and I want to get your take or your
Yeah.
comments. Waffles, it's like a small intestine where you have so much surface area to absorb that sweet, delicious maple syrup. And so there's just so much more nooks and crannies. And I'm not getting into English muffins, just waffles and pancakes. I love waffles for their little pockets of juicy gooiness. On the other hand, and this is where I'm going to give Pancake some props, when you have melting butter, you don't want that to compartmentalize into just one or two pockets of the waffle because then it gets too salty. Whereas for the pancakes, they distribute much more evenly, like maybe let's call it a bell curve. They spread all across the surface of the pancake. So that all said, one of my favorite things on continental breakfast is when you wake up in a hotel, Holiday Inn Express, and you get that Belgian waffle maker and you just make your own Belgian waffle. I love that. Your turn.
My turn. Yeah. So I love the process of cooking pancakes beyond the flavor.
Okay.
So when I cook a pancake, I feel like I have more control. It's not just putting it in the waffle maker. Pancakes have way more utility. Have you ever tried stuffing a waffle? I could stuff a pancake.
Okay.
The biggest knock on pancakes, right? I like, even as much as I love analytics, I can give a great like non-analytics rant too.
Mm-hmm.
It'll confuse a lot of people, but like the non-pancakes rant is, you can probably count the times on your hand where pancakes have been the best part of its own breakfast plate. And that's probably going to be zero. You're always going to go bacon. You're always going to go sausage over it.
Right. It's almost
you
like
might go eggs.
I don't know if you would agree with this analogy, but kind of like the mashed potatoes of a Thanksgiving dinner plate. It's like it's the conduit or the way to get to the gravy into your mouth or something like that, where it's like it's there and it's almost like it's integral to the proceedings, right? I mean, you need some sort of carbohydrate on, if you're gonna have all the greasy bacon and sausages and all that and eggs. So it serves a purpose. And I really like what you said about the more control. Now, are you one of those folks who makes like these elaborate Mickey Mouse, like the spray in the squeezy bottles? Like I think Jimmy Kimmel and other people really make these like intricate designed pancakes.
So I go even extreme with it, or you could say spoil my kids. So I also have a bachelor's degree in fine art painting.
Oh my god!
My wife recently picked me up some paint gels. So it's like a little paintbrush that has icing baked into it. And so I'm actually hand painting on their pancakes.
Oh my goodness. I know you have to go, but that just opens up a whole nother. I'm gonna DM you later, and this is the
Now
first time
you're intrigued.
I am absolutely, yeah. What is that movie or Leo DiCaprio like? First you pique my interest, now you have my attention, something like that. Tom, Miss Senior Pan, Mr. Pan, Mr. Cakes, Mr. Pancakes. I didn't use all of them because I didn't reference you by name, but this was so much fun. Thank you so much for being on this podcast and just everything you do for the hobby. Thank you so much.
All right, it's been great.
All right,
thank you,
take
Denny.
care. Yep. All right, let's sign out here, and everyone listening, thank you so much. And yep, if you're watching on video, my first time my dog's making an appearance because she's very like, what's going on? Probably has to go to the bathroom. All right, take care, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.